Christian Memorial, it's amazing when we are introduced to the gospel, when we come from the world into the kingdom, when we simply get saved. I find it to be amazing. You'll see people who are clueless about God and his ways, clueless about the Lord and his church. They become so filled and invested that they lose all sense of outside reality. God will open your eyes. God will let you see what evil is doing all around you. He'll let you see how evil is trying to draw you in and get you to be a part of his plan. In other words, you did evil, and God said, that evil ain't nothing. Come drink this cup that I have. It's the cup of God's wrath. Cup is not mixed, it's not cut, it's undiluted. It's too much for you to bear. It's death before dishonor. I know I want to live. I want decades more to my life. But how do you choose death before dishonor? If you fail, then you are welcome to keep on living your natural life the way that you want to. Trust me, you can go ahead and keep living how you've been living, comfortably, with no risk. Or would you rather pass the test and watch the old you die in the natural as you grow and soar spiritually? The good news is that every test and every trial has the potential to propel you closer to being the spiritual giant that God created you to be. He loves me, he's going to continue to love me. If he cares for me, he won't get fed up with me and stop caring. He don't act like my buddy one minute and my enemy the next, because God is not human that he should lie. He's not a human being that he should change his mind. I'll close. I'll admit that I want a life that's easy, and God sends situations that are sometimes just too hard to handle, but God has always promised to be my strength, and he's always showed up in the nick of time just to save the day. Mama told me he don't come when I want him to, but he's always right on time. And I don't know about you, I can testify he's a great God. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. And God says, worship him, love him, serve him, declare his holiness and his beauty. Choose death over dishonor. Choose the spiritual life that God is offering you, because it's eternal, and there'll be a great celebration one day. And I would love to be there, and I would love to see you there. We're his soldiers, and we're choosing death over dishonor. Dear friends, welcome back to the Christian Memorial Wednesday night Bible study. It is spiritual guidance. I'm Reverend Dr. Derrick, Randolph, Senior Pastor of Christian Memorial Church. We are studying the book of Job. And this week we're going to pick up in chapter 15 of Job. To aid us in our Bible study, we use Ray Stedman's Let God Be God and Warren Wiz's Be Patient. And we've looked at verses 1 through 16 last week. And this week we're going to pick up on verses 17 through 35 and see what thus saith the Lord to us today through these scriptures. So let's start. I'll read 17 through 35 in its entirety this time. Again, this is Eliphaz. He has a lot to say about Job and Job's circumstances. No longer are they talking about Job's circumstances. Now, Eliphaz has dug in deeper to accuse Job of his own self-righteousness when it comes to God, as Job wants to seek out God and to talk to God face to face. So verse 17, He says, listen to me, and I will explain to you. Let me tell you what I've seen. What the wise have declared, hiding nothing received from their ancestors, to whom alone the land was given when the foreigners moved among them. Now, Eliphaz is saying that our elders have passed down some things to us. And remember, God gave the land and everything to them, so they're worth listening to. Here's what Eliphaz says, verse 20, all his days the wicked man suffers torment. The ruthless man through all the years stored up for him. Verse 21, terrifying sounds fill his ears. When all seems well, marauders attack him. He despairs of escaping the realm of darkness. He is marked for the sword. Verse 23, he wanders about for food like a vulture. He knows the day of darkness is at hand. Distress and anguish fill him with terror. Troubles overwhelm him like a king poised to attack, because he shakes his fist at God. So again, Eliphaz is comparing Job to this wicked man who suffers torment, a ruthless man who has years worth of torment and evil, torment stored up against him for his evil ways. And he's saying that he suffers from terrifying sounds and marauders attacking him. He's stuck in the realm of darkness and he can't escape it. He's in despair because he's stuck there. He's a man that's marked for the sword. Even his own impending death is coming at him. He wanders about for food like a vulture. He knows the days of darkness is at hand. And so we know that Eliphaz is describing Job's situation. So pick 24. He says, distress and anguish fill him with terror. Troubles overwhelm him like a king poised to attack, because he shakes his fist at God. And again, Job is not shaking his fist at God. He's simply saying, why, God, help me understand this. So let's pick up, because he shakes his fist at God and vaunts himself against the Almighty, defiantly charging against him with a thick, strong shield. So let's pick up on 27. Though his face is covered with fat, and his waist bulges with flesh, he will inhabit ruined towns and houses where no one lives, houses crumbling to rubble. And so again, Eliphaz is digging in deep on Job, saying, yeah, you lived fine for a while. Face covered with fat, waist bulging with flesh. You've been eating well. You've been at home, living like a king. But it's going to turn out the opposite for you. Verse 29, he'll no longer be rich, and his wealth will not endure, nor will his possessions spread over the land. Describing Job now. Verse 30, he will not escape the darkness. A flame will wither his shoots, and the breath of God's mouth will carry him away. Woo! Lord. 31, let him not deceive himself by trusting what is worthless, for he will get nothing in return. He's accusing Job of trusting in his stuff, and it's all going to dissipate. 32, before his time he will wither, and his branches will not flourish. Sounds like he's talking about his children. He will be like a vine stripped of its unripe grapes, like an olive tree shedding its blossoms. For the company of the godless will be barren, and fire will consume the tents of those who love bribes. He's talking about, he described Job's season of terror. And lastly, 35, they conceive trouble and give birth to evil. Their womb fashions deceit. They conceive trouble and give birth to evil. Their womb fashions deceit. So there's one thing I can conclude after reading those 18 verses from Eliphaz is that I get the feeling that his words came from a place of pure hate. Young people would say, well, they used to say haterade is haterism. It's just pure hatred what Eliphaz spewed out of his mouth to Job. He was a friend that came to comfort him, but he sounds like a man who dislikes Job, who has pure disdain for Job, and it's disappointing to see that someone could give these words in the season set aside for comfort. It must have been frustrating for Job to have to hear words come from such a bitter place, a bitter pool. Those were scornful words, and it sounded as though Eliphaz resented Job all along. It seems as if Eliphaz looked at Job's life, and in the entirety of Job's life, he saw Job's life as one long skid of evil, and that would end in one great big fall. You know, sometimes you can see a person and you can watch them grow in God, and you can see them have a passion and a zeal for God and love God, and they start out grateful that God saved them and done so much for them and delivered them. And you can see them along their journey as they grow, as they love God more, as they learn how to treat other people. You can see them serving the Lord with gladness, just loving to be among the people, just loving to grow in the Word and understand the Word and watch the Word take root inside of them. But you can also see other people, friends and family, who reject God and they live outside of God. And you can watch their life because they have rejected God. You can see their life skid in another direction. You can watch the circle that they run with start to form. And it looks like a circle that has no intent on coming near God or his church or God's people. You can see a person, their mind go to a different and a dark place when they have the opportunity to receive the Lord. They choose not to, and you can see them take on the world as their own. And they kind of, what do they call them in the movies, in the animated movies, shapeshifters, people who they take on the way of the world. They take on they kind of embody the celebrities and the people in the world and the ways of the world. And you can look at them and you can tell that's not the person that I know. That's not the child I watched growing up. That's such and such's child. They should not be like that. And you could see them embody and take on the weight of the world and the culture and the darkness that breathes. And so it looks as though, you know, God's testimony of Job is trending upward in Christ and God. He's growing. He's getting to know God. And so, and he has opportunity to grow more and more in God. But on the other hand, it's like Eliphaz is looking at Job and he sees Job living good, doing well, you know, face is fat, belly is full, got big house, a lot of land, maybe some property, maybe some, you know, cattle stretching all across the land. And Eliphaz is jealous looking at this, saying he got stuff, but he's saying this guy don't have God. And so he's looking at his life going down in a different direction. It's amazing how you'll see different people depending on the place that you're watching them from. And so God, from a place of purity and from love, looking at Job, sees the trend going upward. But Eliphaz, from a place of bitterness and resentment, looking at Job, seeing him going downward. Maybe Eliphaz doesn't have what Job has. We know Job is doing the best, so maybe Eliphaz doesn't have much. And so maybe Eliphaz is just simply filled
with envy. Maybe he's just jealous of Job. He's starting out with that jealousy. How many of you have somebody in your life that you can tell is jealous of you? You might not have it all, but you're glad for what God gave you, and you got people around you that can't stand that you're happy, that you got joy, that you are at peace with life. You are at peace with God. I can remember when I left everything and forsook all to follow the Lord. I could remember just the baby steps, the moments that meant the world to me. You know, the first time I heard God's voice speak to me is a monumental place for me. There's a marker in my mind and in that place, because I can remember what God said to me. I can remember that whole experience like it was today. I can remember when I first surrendered to the Lord, when I first heard the gospel shared clearly, that I could understand it just a little bit, and I accepted. I said my sinner's prayer. I committed my cause to Christ. I didn't understand it much, but I remember that moment. And then later I had my experience with God when God spoke to me and helped me focus so I could pray. I can remember the moments where I had my heart filled up with so many people, places, and things. And as I had to have my own threshing floor experience and surrender all of that to God, I remember the time and the place. All of those are my markers that show where I'm going in the Lord. And so we have those moments. That's what make our life rich and wealthy. That's what gives us contentment in the Lord. That's why we have peace and joy. We have those places to reflect on. And sometimes people will see where you are and you don't have what they have, or they don't have what you have, but they're envious of what you have on the inside, because they can't get what you got on the inside of them, because it took God coming close to you and calling you to himself, and then for you to surrender to God, for you to get on the inside where he birthed inside of you. And there are people that don't understand it. They just don't get it. They don't know why. They don't see why you're so special. If they could make a list of all the attributes in the world, you wouldn't have all the attributes that they consider incredible or valuable or worthy. So they see you and you just have a peace and a joy and a contentment. You're not chasing after everything in the world, because you got God and he's all that you need. And so people find themselves accusing you and blaming you as soon as anything goes wrong in your life. And that's where Eliphaz and Job are. Eliphaz is looking at Job and he's calling Job one big phony. And he's basically saying God had a plan, Job, and that was to bring you down all along, because you ain't been living right by God. That's why, so as we dig deeper into this story, now I see why it's been said that the devil was using these guys against Job. And Job is in such a broken and fractured place, and there's no one else to help him. And so Job has got to go through this, and he's got to go through it with God and God alone. Our God will set you up so that you got to go through some stuff, and it's just you and it's just God. Nobody else can help you go through what you got to go through. And sometimes the people that are come close to you will come with the intent to help you out, but they're not going to help you out at all. They just going to give you more bitter medicine. They're going to ride with you for a season, and after a while they're going to quit, or they're just going to start working to bring you down. Their source is not comfort. They came for other motives. And so as Job and Eliphaz argued it out a little while, you could see he was never there to comfort. What Eliphaz had inside was some other stuff, some other bitter resentment inside. See, Eliphaz can't understand that when you belong to God and God belongs to you, God will let you go through something. He'll let you go through something, and you'll suffer and you'll hurt and you'll cry, but God will bring you out. And so perhaps Eliphaz is not at that place in God where Job is. So he can't understand and make sense of the fact that you can be right with God and God still let you go through. And so right now, what's happening is this is the second round of the great debate between Job and his friends. And as Job wrestles more and more with what he's going through and why he's going through and what's his part in it and why is God doing it, he's shaping his own theology. He's shaping his understanding about God. And Eliphaz, poor Eliphaz and the two other friends, they don't have a strong theology in God. They can't accept this. And so it's shaking and breaking their understanding of God. And in the end, they're going to have to come out with a different understanding of God himself. So right now, we know that Job is going through, and Eliphaz is saying he's a wicked man. And he's saying, Job, you're a wicked man, and that's why you're going through this. But when you look at life, sometimes we know that wicked people get away with their mess their whole life. And we watch the wicked and the worldly do what they want. And we don't have what they have. We don't get to go where they go. We don't get the experiences that they get. And we wonder, why does God let them live so long? Why does God let them enjoy all of that while we're struggling just to get by? And so wicked sometimes get what they get in life because God knows that's all they're going to get. There is nothing after life for them. And so maybe that's why God allows them to get what little bit they can. And so Eliphaz's argument and judgment against Job for suffering because he's wicked doesn't stand the test. It's not that strong. And so in the end, Eliphaz is just piling on Job. And he says the wicked are tormented, ruthless, have terror stored up, marauders attack them. They're left in the dark with no way to escape the darkness. And it gets worse because you are a person that's resentful toward God and you're taking out your anger on God. He was doing wrong all along, and his home went up in flames, and he lost his children in the process. That's what Eliphaz is saying about God. You lost it all because you did wrong against God. And those are the words that are coming from a close friend. Reminds me of the old hip-hop song by Houdini and that line where it says, with friends like these, I don't need enemies. It's amazing that when you go through, you can either have a public face and a private face when you're going through, or you can just have one face. Sometimes when we go through, we show our happy side out to everybody else. We want everybody to think that everything is okay when we're going through. We present ourselves as happy. We present ourselves as all we can handle. Everything is going all right. And so we make sure that people in the public, our friends on the outside, the folks that in our social circles, see us as stable, well-managed, and manageable in this situation. So they don't worry, so they don't stress, so they don't come too far in to our space. We like to help everybody else, but when it's our time to go through, we don't like to show the public our true face. Sometimes we have that public face and we have that private face on the inside. We don't let anybody see the state of our heart when it's aching and breaking. We just show the happy face. And for those of us that have the two faces when we're going through, we got to learn to merge them into one. We want folk to know that we are all right, but it's okay to let them know that we're struggling. And so our friends with just a happy face, we have to give them the space to grieve, the space to express their true pain, And we have to give them the comfort of knowing that we're with them, whether they're right or whether they're wrong, whether what they're going through is just circumstantial or if they brought it on themselves. That's the lesson for Eliphaz, to give Job that space. And the lesson in this for Job is, well, Job is already living out his part truly with integrity, because he's not hiding who he is or how he feels. He's open with his inner circle, and he's being vulnerable about what he's going through. And as he's being vulnerable, he's going through even more trauma. That's a lesson for us to follow and emulate, like Job. Go through and be honest and be real about what's going on. It's not for the whole world to know, but your inner circle can know what you're going through. And they may agree with you or they may not agree with you. They may like how you're handling it or they may not like how you're handling it. They may want to put you off when you show your grief and your pain because they can't handle it. And that just simply means they should not be in your inner circle with you. They may be good friends for going out with, but they may not be ready to handle your inner circle. And so as we be real with ourselves, we have to know that when we're brought low by life, we're being brought low in God. And we can also be brought high in God too. I want to read Psalm 43. I want to read these words. Psalm 43 says, "Vindicate me, my God, and plead my cause against an unfaithful nation." He says, "Rescue me from those who are deceitful and wicked. You are God, my stronghold. Why have you rejected me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy?" Verse 3, "Send me your light and your faithful care. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy mountain, to the place where you dwell. Then I'll go to the altar of God, to God, my joy and my delight." And here's what he says I'll do there. "I'll praise you with the lyre, O God, my God. Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me?" And here's, in that place where he is, here's the word. He says, "Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God." Here he is, weighed down. Weighted down. We're the saints, weighted down. Sometimes others can't support you because when they are down, they can't support themselves with the truth of their own circumstances. When they're down, they can't accept that they're down. They can't face the world from the position and the posture of being down. And David, in writing Psalm 43, is expressing the fact that I'm down. My soul is downcast, is disturbed within me. But he knows that his help and his hope is in God. And from that down place, he's saying, "God, vindicate me, rescue me. God, you're my stronghold, the only one who can bring me out of this. I feel rejected by you, God. And what's going to save me is your light, God, your faithful care. Lead me out of this, God. Bring me back to your holy mountain. Bring me to your presence, God. Bring me to the place where you dwell, because when I'm down, there is nowhere to go but up, and it's up back into the presence of God. God is the one that's going to bring you out. And he says, there I'll go to the altar of God. That's where I go. I go to God because God is my joy and my delight. God is my strength. In fact, when I come to the place and presence of God, I'll praise you and I'll worship you there. My hope is in God when I'm down. And so when I'm down, I really don't need the people to try to bring me up or out. In fact, Eliphaz is showing that the people really can't bring you up and out. It's really God who brings you up and out. So the purpose of people is to help you pursue God. And so when you're going through, people will see you and wonder why you don't handle everything the way that they handled it. Perhaps they were not truthful and honest with themselves about how they felt and what they were going through when they were going through. So when you go through, be honest with where you are. Be honest with God about how you feel. Pour it all out when you're in your down season with God. God might just use you to help somebody else when they're going through. See, people that can't be honest with themselves, they'll shame you because you're not handling it the way that they did. What they'll do is they'll detail your life for you like Eliphaz did. He detailed Job's life line by line, and then he concluded with, Job, you just not living right. Oh God, what they'll do is they'll attempt to prove to you that your theology about God is wrong. But my God, if you stick with God when everything is right, and then you stick with God when you're going through, and then when you stick with God when you're finished, and God proves to you that he's been with you all along and that he's worthy to be sticking with, then you'll have the right theology about God. You'll have the right understanding that God has grace and mercy for every season. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. There's a verse, there's a section in 2 Samuel chapter 12. It's a story about King David, and I'm gonna read this to you, and I think I'm gonna close. It's a story about David when he got trapped in sin, because remember, we're talking about Job going through, his friends saying, "Oh, you've been in sin the whole time. Your life is trending downward. God is punishing you, and you deserve every bit of it." And Job is saying, "No, I searched my heart. I'm right with God. I just can't figure out what's going on." And I'm telling today, just stick with God, whatever season you're in. Pour out all of the emotion on God. Let God know everything that you're feeling, and God will surely bring you through it. And so the point here is, when you're wrong, God will show you that you're wrong. But when you're right, oh God, he'll confirm with you that you're on the right track. Let's read these verses. 2 Samuel 12. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, there were two men in a certain town, one rich and one poor. It says the rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle. But the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he brought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. But now a traveler came to the rich man. But the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. How cruel. When David heard this, verse 5, David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and he had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, well, you are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel. I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. So he said, why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what's evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword will never depart from your house because you despised me and you took the wife of Uriah to be your own. And so they go on and on and on. And so he says, you did it in secret, but I'll do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel. And then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. That's what I wanted to get to. Verse 10, I've sinned against the Lord. And Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin. You're not going to die. But by doing this, you have shown utter contempt for the Lord. The son born to you will die. Now that's the truth. When we've done wrong, God will reveal to you that we've done wrong. His word will show you. And if his word doesn't speak clearly to you, God will send people to you to show you when you've done wrong. So it bothers me personally when saints can't see their own journey objectively, and they can't separate what they're going through with what you're going through, and they attempt to give you a diagnosis for your own life. Saints don't need to diagnose your whole life for you. God will do that. Saints need to learn how to give comfort to you and correction to you if necessary. In this story, Job rejected the correction that he got from his 3 friends, and then it would be up to the Lord to determine who was right and who was wrong. So I just simply say, be careful when saints want to project their problematic position on you. Sometimes people can't relate to the ways that God is blessing you. They'll cast judgment on you for not being locked in step with them in the way that God is blessing them. So sometimes I can feel the spiritual frustration, the resentment, the bitterness that someone else is going through in their life, and then I can feel somehow they will project that pain onto me if they get the chance. So when God has you down, experience the down season, flush it all out of your system, go back through your mind, search your heart, and find what you've done wrong with God. Work with God. Let him rebuild you and bring you up out of it if there's something that you've done wrong. And when you're up, stay up and walk upright before the Lord. Live by your convictions in the Lord. And be careful not to bring somebody else down and put a stumbling block before them when they're going through. And make sure no one else puts a mill around your neck when you're going through, because in your own heart and mind, you've worked your situation out with the Lord. So I'm going to close with the advice that when you encounter people that want to put too much on you, just love them back. When you encounter people that are going through and they can't figure out why they're going through, just love them. When you are going through and other people want to help you, but they are of no help, and you can't get them to stop projecting their mess onto you, put a hold to that, but just love them back. And I close on the words of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, you've heard it was said, love your neighbors and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good. He sends rain on the righteous and he sends rain on the unrighteous. And Jesus also said, if you love those who love you, what reward would you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, are you doing any more than others? Do not even the pagans do that. So here's the advice. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So my advice to you is to love your enemies and to love friends when they act like your enemies too. But back in verse 11, Jesus said, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of things and evil against you because of me. So I tell you today, rejoice and be glad like Job, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So when life got you down, find out for yourself if you've done wrong with God. If you've not done wrong with God, just keep riding with God. When you come out of it, stay riding with God. And when you're going through it and others want to burden you, keep riding with God. God has got you. He's got your back. He knows what you're going through. He's watching you being strengthened in the process. God has plans for you that even you don't understand. Sometimes the saints will put on a happy face for the public and they'll put on a sad face in private. I tell you, merge your two faces. Be who you are. Clean the, what do they say? Clean the mourning off of your face. Put on the joy of gladness after you sought God. Be yourself in the season that you're going through and watch God bless you. He'll turn your mourning into gladness. He'll turn your tears into joy. He counts every tear and he's going to turn it all into joy. God bless you.